Hello again. My conversation with Dr. Brovkin yesterday gave me so much to reflect on with respect to the primacy of peace in our world today. And I know that I am not unique. I belong, I think, to a new generation of Americans who would very much like to have better relations with the rest of the world, a new generation who recognizes and respects the histories of foreign countries and seeks very serious diplomacy with them over war. I think a new generation is emerging that is unencumbered in many ways by the histories and baggage of their predecessors. And we would like to maintain open and thoughtful and temperate dialogue with the rest of humanity for the benefit of humanity. And so along this vein, I have been reading excerpts from Mahatma Gandhi's Hind Swaraj, or known as Indian Home Rule. I have found it fascinating, and I think it is very relevant to America's predicament today. We are not colonized, as India was, but I think we live in a deeply divided and violent society that mirrors colonial India in very important ways. As I read Gandhi's writing, I was thinking to propose a version of Hind Swaraj, but this time for America. Let's call it America's Home Rule. This is why I think history is so compelling. Humanity is cut from the same cloth, and we recognize ourselves in the stories of other civilizations. So before I elaborate on America's Home Rule, first a little bit more about Gandhi's project and his writing. So he wrote Hind Swaraj. It was written first in Gujarati, which was Gandhi's native language, while Gandhi was traveling, I think, from London to South Africa. It was actually banned in 1910 in Britain, and it was considered a highly seditious text at that time. I have found it to be really stimulating, and it has given me so much to chew over these last couple weeks. Gandhi respectfully rejects Western conceptions of modernity and articulates an alternative vision for India, one that is predicated on Swaraj, which can be translated to self-rule, something that is ultimately rooted in traditional civilization and moral principles of India. So Gandhi and I might disagree on very many things, but I do so appreciate his nuance and his deftness of thought in his writings. Hind Swaraj assumes the format of a dialogue between two unnamed people, the reader and the editor. The reader represents sort of the ordinary Indian countryman who's trying to understand his place amid England's colonial project in India. And the editor represents the voice of Mahatma Gandhi. I would like to read one of my favorite excerpts from this text. And as I read, I would enjoin you to think about how modern America can learn from colonial India in important ways. Here it is. Reader, I appreciate your views about civilization. I will have to think over them. I cannot take in all at once. What then, according to the views you hold, would you suggest for freeing India? The editor, I do not expect my views to be accepted all of a sudden. My duty is to place them before readers like yourself. Time can be trusted to do all the rest. We have already examined the conditions for freeing India, but we have done so indirectly. We will now do so directly. It is a world-known maxim that the removal of the cause of a disease results in the removal of the disease itself. Similarly, if the cause of India's slavery can be removed, India can become free. The reader, if Indian civilization is, as you say, the best of all, how do you account for India's slavery? Because the sons of India were found wanting, its civilization has been placed in jeopardy. But its strength is to be seen in its ability to survive the shock. Moreover, the whole of India is not touched. Those alone who have been affected by Western civilization have become enslaved. And so we measure the universe by our own miserable foot rule. When we are slaves, we think that the whole universe is enslaved. because we are in an abject condition, we think that the whole of India is in that condition. As a matter of fact, it is not so, but it is as well to impute our slavery to the whole of India. But if we bear in mind the above fact, we can see that if we become free, India is free. And in this thought, you have a definition of Swaraj. It is Swaraj when we learn to rule ourselves. It is therefore in the palm of our hands. Do not consider this Swaraj to be like a dream. Here, there is no idea of sitting still. The Swaraj that I wish to picture before you and me is such that, after we have once realized it, we shall endeavor to the end of our lifetime to persuade others to do likewise. But such Swaraj has to be experienced by each one for himself. One drowning man will never save another. Slaves ourselves, it would be a mere pretension to think of freeing others. Now, you will have seen that it is not necessary for us to have as our goal the expulsion of the English. If the English become Indianized, we can accommodate them. The reader. It is impossible that the Englishmen should ever become Indianized. The editor. To say that is equivalent to saying that the English have no humanity in them. If we keep our own house in order, only those who are fit to live in it will remain. Others will leave of their own accord. Such things occur within the experience of all of us. The reader. But it has not occurred in history. The editor. To believe that what has not occurred in history will never occur at all is to argue disbelief in the dignity of man. The reader. What then would you say to the English? The editor. To them I would respectfully say, I love this part, I admit you are my rulers. It is not necessary to debate the question of whether you hold India by the sword or by my consent. I have no objection to your remaining in my country, but although you are the rulers, you will have to remain as servants of the people. It is not we who have to do as you wish, but it is you who have to do as we wish. You may keep the riches that you have drained away from this land, but you may not drain riches henceforth. Your function will be, if you so wish, to police India. You must abandon the idea of deriving any commercial benefit from us. We hold the civilization that you support to be the reverse of civilization. If you realize this truth, it will be to your advantage. We consider your schools and law courts to be useless. We want our own ancient schools and courts to be fully restored. We cannot tolerate the idea of your spending money on railways that do not serve us and a military that does not serve us. We see no occasion for either. You may fear Russia. We do not. When she comes, we shall look after her. If you are with us, we may then receive her jointly. We do not need any European cloth. We can work together only if our interests are identical. This has not been said to you in arrogance. You have great military resources. Your naval power is matchless. If we wanted to fight with you on your own ground, we should be unable to do so. But if the above submissions are not acceptable to you, we cease to play the part of the ruled. You may, if you like, cut us to pieces. You may shatter us at the cannon's mouth. If you act contrary to our will, we shall not help you, and without our help, we know that you cannot move one step forward. It is likely that you would laugh at this, at the intoxication of your power. We may not be able to disillusion you at once, but if there be any manliness in us, you will see shortly that your intoxication is suicidal, and your laugh at our expense is an aberration of intellect. You English who have come to India are not good specimens of the English nation, nor can we, almost half anglicized Indians, be considered good specimens of the real Indian nation. If the English nation were to know all that you have done, it would oppose many of your actions. Only on condition of our demands being fully satisfied may you remain in India. And if you remain under those conditions, we shall learn several things from you, and you will learn many from us. So doing, we shall benefit each other and the world. Okay, So that concludes that excerpt. So what can America learn from Hind Swaraj? What would American home rule look like? We are not colonized by the English. We are not colonized by a foreign country. But I think that the dissension and violence that Gandhi refers to is very much a facet of a feature of our society today, as if we were colonized by a foreign power. So what would American home rule look like then? Broadly speaking, I think it would mean a renewed commitment to peace through the deliberate cultivation of sensitivity, through what Gandhi would call a soul force. I don't think we will work for peace without this soul force, as Gandhi calls it, because without this, we cannot become an educated and sensitive citizenry. What does this mean in practice? I think that this means a renewed interest in the serious study of literature and the arts, because I think this cultivates sensitivity for us in very important ways. So personally, I have tried to understand sensitivity in different ways over the course of my own life, as alternately a blessing and sometimes a curse. Sensitivity seems very virtuous, but it can also seem maladaptive in many ways, because I think there's a certain ruthlessness one needs to move about the world unassailed. The world is full of corrupting temptations, which we all know to be true, and people are sort of variably primed to recognize and rebuke them over their lives. But I suppose I'm thinking about this precarious balance now more than ever. So what is the purpose of great sensitivity, and how can it be channeled productively? So I always equated sensitivity with compassion as something that allows us to relate to others with empathy and intentionality. So sensitivity was a relational virtue, and it existed to bring us closer to each other, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. In the words of St. Luke, though, sensitivity begets a seriousness of purpose. It sharpens our focus. It clarifies our vision. It guides our heart and intellect in a way that is hardly chaotic and disordered, but rather deliberate and mutually enriching. And perhaps there's no greater purpose than to be deeply moved by the human experience, to relinquish its attendant despondency and acquisitiveness, and to embrace the possibility to alleviate suffering wherever it is found. So I think this is the purpose of great art, of great music, of great literature, and of nature. I think these things all sensitize us so that we are able to recognize good and rebuke evil. I think they achieve this by first tempering our wildly egos. And we live in a world with so many perverse incentives. A desire to be extraordinary, a desire to conform and be comfortable, a reluctance to not rock the boat or spite the hand that feeds us, a desire for leadership, maybe without much consideration for where we are going or who should be walking along with us. So I would like to propose that we redouble our commitment to cultivating that soul force that Gandhi prized so highly by exploring everything that the world of art and culture has to offer us. My initial guests in this series all hailed from the field of medicine, my own field, a field that I personally think is rife with questions about human suffering and offers great opportunities for compassion. But now I would like to turn my attention to the worlds of culture and society, because I think therein lies that soul force that can sustain us as we work towards a world that is hopefully more humane and considered. So thank you so much for listening. I'm looking forward to continuing these conversations.